In today's fast-paced world where demands are constantly increasing and expectations are higher than ever, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, stuck, or unsure about how to reach your full potential. But fear not, this podcast is specifically designed to equip you with the mindset, strategies, and insights needed to excel in every area of your life. Together, we're going to unlock the secrets of high performance and embark on a transformational journey towards living our best life. Let's dive in. All right, Brandon Richards, welcome to the High Performers Podcast.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really glad to have you on. So we connected over the internet, over Facebook, and we got to talking. And I always like to ask people at the very beginning, what do you tell people when they ask you, what do you do for a living?
That's funny because I've been thinking about that lately, and I think I tell people the wrong thing, at least for the avenue of business that I want. So I'm a broker, which is easier for a lot of people to understand, especially in kind of the circle I'm around here. I need to be telling people that I'm an investor. So I've been flipping houses and doing wholesaling and getting into commercial stuff for about 8 years now. And for some reason or another, I just default to broker. It comes out easier, and I need to get away from that.
Old habits die hard, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, making that switch over from being a broker and a realtor over into investing. Let's talk about that, because I've talked to a lot of people who come out of like W-2 jobs and they want to start investing. Do you feel like it was a little bit like that?
Not for me per se. Before I got my realtor license, I was already self-employed. I owned a franchise. For me, knowing nothing about real estate in the beginning, I thought the obvious course of action was going to be to become a realtor, but quickly learned that I didn't need my license at all. And so the transition was pretty seamless for me. And so I started investing about, 18 months into my real estate endeavors. So it wasn't that bad. But my wife, who has helped me quite a bit, it is a little bit more difficult for her because she likes that structured aspect of it, whereas I'm just like willy-nilly doing whatever the heck I want most of the time. And so she hates that about it, but yeah, it works out.
Now, I'll do a little bit of inside baseball with you, because we already had some conversations and you talked about the big whiteboard with your wife, right?
Yep.
Did y'all do that?
Not yet. I wish you could turn my camera around, but you would just see all my dirt bikes. We have not put up the whiteboards yet.
So tell us the plan,
So
though.
the plan is to be, I wouldn't say I'm a typical entrepreneur, but my mind is, ooh, that looks cool. That looks cool. That looks cool. I like trying new things because it's just fun. I don't get super dialed in on one thing or the other. I got my broker's license because I've been doing it so long. I was knowledgeable. Why not? I like earning these little monumental accomplishments. It makes me feel good, I guess. So I never really pursued the broker realtor thing, whereas my wholesaling and flipping, I went hardcore on that. And now that, as you know, I'm going into some more commercial and multifamily assets, I haven't really dialed in the business model, and that's why we got the whiteboard to try to really get it out of my head onto a board visually, so Ashley could help me organize it. And that was supposed to happen this week, but as you know, we had some rain and it really messed up the project of ours. So I got sidetracked a little bit. And actually, this is my second podcast this week. So it's been one of those weeks. And so hopefully I can get Ashley in this office and we will dial in that whiteboard and get it squared away. But yeah, she's very detail oriented, and that I think that's going to help me out.
Oh yeah, detail oriented is important. Let's switch over to that project you were just talking about. Tell us about it.
So that one's not my project, but I've been heading up like kind of the back end aspects of it. So it's a 40-acre parcel, general zoning that allows for 5 acres. It was off the grid when my buddy bought it. I was the broker on the buying side, and I'll be the broker on the selling side of all the splits, but it was off grid and it has no power, of which I brought in. It's about a mile away. I like doing hard work. It gets me out of the office. So I jumped in the machines, did all the clear cutting, did all the trenching, did all the utility setting, but then it rained and it pushed back all of that this past week when APS was supposed to be rolling in and doing their install. So
tell us the plan on that. The 40 acres, you're bringing in the power for what? What are you going to build?
Oh, single family houses.
But are you going to go ahead and build them all out?
Yeah. Okay. So again, it's my buddy's project. We got all single family, basic 322s, a little bit down a dirt service or a Forest Service road. But for our area, it'll be a nice entry level house at an affordable price, which is somewhere around 600,000.
Yeah, pretty affordable, huh?
Yeah. Like I said, for our area, our medium sales price right now is 650, and it continues to rise year over year. It's pretty astronomical. Yeah.
I think you're in Dallas Fort Worth. It's a little bit north of that still, even.
Yeah. I can't remember I think the median sales price in Texas when I was there was still in the 3s, maybe in the 4s now. but I don't know. Yeah, it's very expensive where I'm at here in Flagstaff, though.
So talk about that being in Flagstaff. What are you getting from you see on like the YouTubes and all the different videos about people moving from California coming to Arizona. Are you seeing that a lot?
Kind of, sort of, not really in our area. Most of our buyers for our product, which is a new home build, is a second time home buyer in general. We've had a couple local buyers buy as a homestead, but a lot of our buyers are from Scottsdale, Phoenix, somewhere down in the valley, and they want a second home up here because we've got all the ponderosa pines. We still have snow on the ground, and it's just a beautiful area compared to Phoenix. It's a different beauty, but it's already almost 100 degrees down there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were talking about doing the work yourself, and you were talking about doing the trenching and jumping in the machines. Talk
Yeah.
about that. How'd you learn how to do all that?
Just doing it. So I did a little bit of earthwork back in Texas when I was doing things where that was grading for drainage and or placing fences or whatever it was. I used small equipment back there, small excavators, small skid steers, some skid steer augers. But when I got out here, since my buddy was building a bunch of houses and it's really hard for me to sit in the office, I kind of just volunteered, hey, pay me to be out there. And so after a couple dozen hours of doing these things, I've become pretty proficient at it. And over the years, he's acquired quite a bit more machines, and so I've learned all the heavy equipment at this point.
That's great. Did you ever do any work in the oil field out here in Texas?
No.
That's where a lot of my friends will wind up learning the equipment.
Yeah.
And it's exactly like you said, you just learn it. So I always thought, whenever I first went in there, I was like, man, there must be so much training. Look how technical it is. There's all these gear sticks and stuff you got to know, and safety. They're like, here's the keys, $250,000 machine. Go have fun.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Thankfully, I haven't broken anything yet. Yeah, but it just that's the only way to learn is just to be out there and dig a bunch of holes or tear down a bunch of houses and just continuously be in the movements, and then it becomes natural. Within 5 to 15 hours, you've got it down pretty much.
Yeah, that's when you get dangerous. You're just comfortable enough to make big mistakes.
Yeah. So we tear down a lot of houses, and so I like picking up various aspects of that. Like I'll pick up a fridge super precisely and place it in the dumpster, ultra soft, and not damage it, and then I smush it so I make more room. But I just like doing it. Yeah, it's pretty fun. Big kid problems.
Yeah. Well, you're working on your skills.
Yeah.
You're keeping those skills up. You haven't completely moved out of being a broker yet, correct?
No, and I probably won't. So my same buddy we're talking about now, is trying to convince me to open up a brokerage. And I kind of do, kind of don't. But I don't know. I don't have a plan at all about getting out of that. I do only represent him. And so that's kind of nice. I don't have any buyers. I don't have any other sellers. And so I'm not spending a lot of time in that aspect of my business. Most of my time is spent in lead generation for whatever it is, wholesaling and flipping, basically.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. What are you gathering leads for? Wholesaling and flipping. Let's talk about that, because some of the people on this going to be listening to this are real estate, and a lot of people are just into different kinds of business, don't know a ton about real estate. What is wholesaling?
Right. So wholesaling is essentially an assignment of beneficial interest in a contract. So I'll put my name on the contract as my company name is OPF, and I'll assign my interest in that contract to an end buyer. And every state's law is different. Here in Arizona, when my name's on that contract, I'm required or expected to perform, even if my buyer doesn't. So it's a little bit different here. Whereas in Texas, once that contract was assigned to the end buyer, that contract was essentially theirs, and they're responsible to close. And then my legal responsibility is pretty much gone at that point. But let's say, just an example, I find a building that's worth $220,000. I contract it for 100. I'll sell it to the end buyer, or assign to the end buyer for 120. Make the $20,000 spread.
And they saved $100,000.
Right. Yeah. So they have $100,000 in equity to do the rehab and then either rent or flip themselves. Yeah.
So we call that leaving meat on the bone for the next guy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And the great thing is that's one of the ways that you can really kind of know that you're going to sell quickly. If you've got plenty of room in it so that you can let somebody else take some too. That's a great way to sell quick instead of sitting on a property. And then maybe you're rolling the dice, interest rates and everything change, and now you're really sitting on a property for a while.
Right. And so there hasn't been too many times. Well, I can't think of actually a single time that I've ever not performed on a contract. So if I couldn't find a buyer, I either closed on myself and put it on the MLS, just found a new buyer if I had one default or not show up to close or whatever it was. So pretty good track record there. There's quite a few investors that will contract a property and not perform, and I don't think that's right, but I've never I've never done that. And you'll see a lot of people do that in every major metro.
Well, I've seen a lot that'll do it and with no intention of performing.
Right.
Now, of course, a lot of people
Well,
have things change. They can't raise the money, whatever, to not perform.
Right.
But that's really kind of a, well, we're kind of beating around the bush, not calling it a dirtbag move, but it kind of is. It's
Yeah,
something a little
right.
bit kind of shady to do where you lock up a property. And basically what you're saying
Yeah.
is, hey, I promise to sell you this amount, give you this amount of money for the property in a certain amount of days.
Yeah.
And then whenever it comes
Right.
to it, you just don't give them the money and they say, well, you can't have the property now. Well, I already bought a different property anyway.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, not a real
Yeah,
great way to
there's
do it.
that. And there, well, just because I'm thinking about it, there's one, I guess it's a strategy, it's shiesty, but
Yeah.
there's a strategy being taught out there where they'll get it on a contract for X, let's say 120, and then they'll make up some excuse of why they can't buy it at 120. And they'll go back to the seller and say, hey, this came up or that came up, or my contractor said the rehab's more money than I thought, so I can't do it for 120 now. But since we're already under contract and your foreclosure's next week, I can only buy it for 100. How's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of guys like that out there, and I think that is just horrible business. But they teach
Well,
it too, which is horrible, really shady. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the good part about that is we won't have to compete against those folks for very long because they don't wind up staying in the business. You really can't screw over too many people and just keep staying in the business because that
Right.
means there's probably a realtor on the seller's side. That realtor got
Yeah.
screwed over too. So it's not just the seller that got screwed over. But that realtor is going to remember your name and they're going to talk about you at networking events and they're going to talk
yeah.
about you to their broker who talks to the other broker. And
Yep.
you're not going to be in the business very long
Exactly.
if you wind up doing that a lot. So there's a little
Right.
tip for you folks. If that's something you're getting taught,
Yeah.
maybe question it, maybe look at it a little bit closer.
So single family wholesaling, I did that for quite a few years, had a bunch of VAs that were doing all of my marketing. Now I've kind of branched into, and as we were talking last week, is just more commercial type stuff. We just locked up a sweet one, say Friday. So that would have been 3 days ago now. A really great opportunity. It's a large inner city parcel that has the ability to have, it's rated for 50 units and it can go up to 100 single family units if we get the right easements. And so it's a $8 to $10 million profit for my buyer. And we've been working on them for about 19 months.
That's very good. So talk about being a broker and an investor. And do you you can't really partner with somebody who's you're a broker for, can you?
Sure. Yeah.
Is that how you do it?
No. So it depends on the deal. So there has been times where I have partnered on various deals. This particular property is just an assignment of contract, as well as the other ones we talked about last week, the motel and the mobile home park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a partnership could work out. Yeah.
And then do you ever do any of the, because you're not a contractor also, you just went
No.
and learned how to do stuff in a bulldozer.
Right. Yeah. And if we own it, then it's all legal. Yeah.
I can identify with that. I did that too.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't drive that thing off the side of a cliff. Well, let's talk about the mindsets a little bit from transitioning, because you ever really, you're not giving up brokering, but you're not running like a regular brokerage. So talk about the transition from being like that W-2 mindset, that stability, structure mindset of like broker, agent, all that kind of stuff into what you're doing now. Talk about how you changed your mind first.
Again, for me, my last W-2 was, when did I have a job last? When I was 23. So it's been about 13 years since I've had a real job. But in the beginning, I can remember when I first started bought the carpet cleaning franchise. That was pretty scary because I had a somewhat stable job. Surprisingly enough, I was an 18-wheel driver. I drove long haul flatbed across the country, and which was fairly stable. I was gone for 3 weeks at a time, so it was easy and hard at the same time. I had the stable income, but I was always gone. So that transition into being self-employed was fun and exciting and new, and I've always wanted to do it. But as soon as you stop getting those paychecks and you're required to go hustle and get your own money, that was quite burdensome mentally, especially as the man of the household, expected to provide. My wife at the time was stay-at-home mom, so that was pretty scary for sure. But thankfully, we had a little bit of money saved up, and the business was a already active franchise, so I didn't have to build that, I guess, a deck of customers. I already had quite a few. Yeah, I would imagine that if you're going from especially a six-figure W-2 to self-employed can be quite scary, I guess.
Oh yeah, it gets real scary. So I don't know if I told you, but the way that I did it is instead of getting a real high income and saving money and everything, I took my income down as low as you possibly could. And when people talk about having my expenses. I took my expenses down as low as I possibly could. So I had all this juice on the top, all this cream to spend on properties and such. And whenever I talk about getting your living expenses down, they're like, oh, what, down to like 3,000 a month or something? And I'm like, no, down to like 300 per month. You know, I did it a totally different way.
Yeah.
And so I always tell
Yeah.
people it worked. It probably will work for you, but I wouldn't suggest it because it's pretty tough.
Yeah, no, not having personally been there, I can't really talk on, personal experience, but even thought about it, because before I was a truck driver, I was going to go into the oil fields. There was all these things going on in my mind, like how can I afford that with the amount of bills that I have and not having a job? And the oil field wasn't guaranteed, and that was in another state. And so there's all these things going on in my mind. But that would have been, for me, very hard personally. Yeah, I can't imagine doing it, actually going back to that again.
Yeah.
And doing that. And so,
yeah, it's pretty rough. Been there too. It's like I said before, it works, but I wouldn't suggest it. You will go make money in the oil field, but I would not suggest it.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, I would. It's a hard transition.
It's a hard transition. So let's talk about the whiteboard. That means you have a plan for the future. So let's talk about some of your goals and the plans. What are you building?
Oh man, we're talking about goals again.
Well, tell me how you feel about goals. I remember now. Tell me what you think about goals.
For me, I've never written down goals. The main reason would be is I haven't really dialed them down, I guess, because I don't know that I'm in between wanting to get ultra wealthy and living off grid. And I haven't in my mind dialed that down yet. But as far as monetary and family goals, I don't know what number I know what my number gets us, breaks us even, and then we can survive. But I don't know what number gets me to my personal life goals yet, because as of the last 5 years or so, I've acquired quite a few new hobbies, and they're very expensive. And so had I made a goal before of, let's say, $20,000 a month passive in my current goals, that wouldn't be quite sufficient. Or my current hobbies wouldn't cut it. So I don't know what that number is. I haven't dialed it down, and so it's hard for me to mentally grasp that dollar amount. And then putting it on paper makes it seem, I don't know, not real, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's real. It's like you're putting it down. You're actually you're taking it from your brain where it exists only as this ephemeral, like electrical signals going throughout your head, and then you make it a physical something in the world. You're like, oh, this is real. This is really real. And that's why it's so powerful. And because you're taking it out of your mind, you put it down there, and now that you've made it real, you can bring it in reality. And that's obviously you've been able to have we had to talk about this the other day. Obviously you've had some success from no goals, just kind of feeling it. I'm gonna do the way I want to do. It's obviously worked for you some. The scary part for me is you're probably like top 3% of people that can do that. So that means that like 97% of other people have no access to what you're talking about. To be able to just imagine it and leave it there, it needs to be brought down for them and put into a piece of concrete matter that exists in the world, and that's that magic. That's that magic that works for them. But you got that special thing.
Yeah. Well, the other aspect is like, how widespread my current, I don't even know if I could call it a business
interests.
Right now. It's just like, so it's like if I was a realtor only and I knew my average commission was X and I wanted to be X a month or X a year, I could really dial down the math from, if I want 120,000 and I had $5,000 commissions, I could say, hey, that's 60 transactions a year and I needed 5 a month. But in my business, my commissions / wholesale fees are all over the board. So if I make a goal to do 120,000 this year, that could be in 60 transactions or 1 or 2. And so it's hard for me to really dial back that math. I don't know.
Well, I'll teach you a way that I do it. Take one that you think is the highest number, then add a 0 and then double it. That's probably where it should be.
Yeah.
And even if it's not where it should be, it's probably where you could get it to. And even if you can't get it to there, on the way there, you're probably going to be a lot higher than what you were expecting in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Having that vision's been so important to me. I got taught this by a couple of mentors about just really focusing on way outside of what you're thinking about now. Like really get it big.
Yeah.
And then just start working on that and wait till you see where you go from there. I know personally, I had my first goal was 10 lots over in Hawaii that I buy. And before you knew it, I had like 16. And then before you know it, I had 60. I was like, wow, this is how it works. You really just try and so now I was like, what if I'd have set my goals at I want to have 1,000 units, but I have 6,000 units now.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
All right. I'll
And
stop
I guess
picking
those
you on.
goals could,
I'll stop picking on you on
no, that's
goals.
fine. It's fine.
Yeah. What are some of the other mindsets? Do you have any habits and routines, books that you read, podcasts, anything that you can feed your brain with to keep these high quality, high achiever mentalities?
Kind of, sort of. So the only thing I can think of right now that I'm really dialed in on, and I never skip, is the gym. I do read a lot of books, but I go in spurts. Like sometimes I'll read like multiple books at once, and I'll cover 2 to 6 books in a couple month time span, and then sometimes I'll go a couple months without reading at all. And so it's because I enjoy reading, but over the past 8 years of being in real estate, I've kind of kept all my reading to real estate books. And so recently, in the past, let's say 6 months, I was like, okay, I want to enjoy reading again. And so I bought some books that were not real estate related at all. Like one of them was, this lady's venture into living in Alaska for the first time after being in the lower 48. And so that was really cool. And so, yeah, that's me trying to get back into the love of reading, which I haven't fully grasped yet, but working on it. But as far as the actual processes and things that kept me dedicated is just not letting myself down when it came to getting in the gym, or recently, now that we have a lot of the snow melt, is getting back outside and hiking consistently. And,
Let's talk about
yeah,
that
that's
for a minute.
pretty
When you
much it.
said not letting yourself down when you
Yeah.
go to the gym, talk about that. Why is it important?
For me, my health and my fitness is really centered around my mental health. And so if I know that, because and you'll see the similarities between my personal life and business, is like in business, I kind of squirrel. So in my physical health, if I don't get in that gym every single day, I'll think about the whole day. Even if there was a very specific reason I couldn't make it to the gym that day, like I had an early meeting and I didn't find the time to get back in the middle of the day, I'll beat myself up. And so getting into the gym every single day is that little win that I know that will set the pace for the rest of my day. So I've been very consistent about going to the gym the past 12 years or so.
Does that help you with confidence?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The actual
Yeah, that's just
consistency of it, though.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel
Yeah,
that
because it's
so much
difficult.
whenever you go ahead.
I'll just say, yeah, it's difficult. There's a lot of people that want to get in the gym, but end up not doing it for one reason or another. And so knowing that, I can get in there and do it is, yeah, feels good.
Yeah, feels good to keep that commitment to yourself. Because the other thing
Yeah.
that's really bad about it is when you make that commitment to yourself, then you don't do it.
Yeah.
Now you're like, well, am I even going to trust myself? That takes away a lot of confidence, because you don't even
Right.
have the faith in yourself to do what you said to yourself you would do.
Yeah.
Like you're a
I
terrible
do that with
employee
food
and a
too.
horrible boss. You should just fire yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Can people get in touch with you? Is there any social media or ways that people can get in touch if they want to kind of get involved with what you're doing?
Yeah. So pretty active on Facebook. Have been for quite a few years. That's more business / personal on there. I try to keep it, clean and kosher on there. Or I've got a podcast, as you're aware. It's the Fearless Pursuit of Freedom podcast. It's on YouTube and any major podcasting platform, iTunes, iHeartRadio, the works. So
Fearless Pursuit of Freedom.
Freedom. Yep.
That's good. So that's your podcast. Great. People reach out to him. Go out and see his podcast. It's good. Let's do the final question. So I ask everybody the same question, and we're going to use our imagination for a second. We're going to imagine this is the last time you're going to be on a podcast. As a matter of fact, this is the last time anybody on earth is ever going to hear from you. But this podcast is going to go out to the entire world. Everybody's going to hear it. Brandon Richards, what is your message to the world?
Oh, man. Yeah, I forget who said the quote, but imagine yourself. There's quite a few. So for me, like the meaning of us being on earth is hard to quantify and hard to understand. A lot of us are stuck in our ways. We wake up, we do have a routine, we go to work, we come home, we eat. But for me, that isn't the why, and I don't know why, but for me, those monotonous, mundane, boring tasks aren't why we're here on earth. We're here to enjoy it, love the people around us, spread love, protect and care for people that don't have the love and protection that they need. And so imagine yourself on your deathbed and the ghost of your dreams that you never pursued are over you, and having you feel that regret of not following those dreams is something that really drives me. And a lot of that is personal. Like, I'm a pilot now, and if I would have gone on my deathbed not knowing that I didn't pursue the dream of being a pilot, that'd be more weight on my chest than a lot of things. And, outside of personal selfish things like that, is just family. And so I always remind myself that I could today go remind myself to be present, even if it's just in passing. Let my kids know that I love them. It doesn't matter the time of the day. It doesn't matter how quick I'm going to be gone. It's, I love you. I'll see you in a little bit. And just, I've had some scary times in my life where I'm like, oh shoot, I might not make it out of this. And I'm like, crap, did I tell my wife and kids that I love them before I left today? And that's scary. And so just yeah, that's my message. Just remind everybody around them that you love them, you care for them, appreciate them. And yeah, don't forget about your own personal dreams as well. Don't let other aspects of life get in the way and hinder that.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful message. All right, Brandon, thanks for coming on. For me, Alex Alexander, and the High Performers Podcast, go out there and stay high performing. Bye-bye, y'all.
See ya.
See ya.